She Overcomes inspires, equips, and empowers women to become their boldest selves personally and professionally. Our mission is to raise up and empower existing leaders who live with courage and confidence in community. I'm Melanie Rudd, your host and founder of She Overcomes. Thank you so much for joining us today. Jourdan Fischer is my guest and baby sister. Sounds funny to say that to you. But Jourdan is a proud mother of two sweet daughters, my nieces, Ava and Evie, and a wife to Chad. Jourdan's story of overcoming many obstacles in her life brings her here today as an ICU neuro nurse, a homeschool mom, video game playing, crochet genius, and obviously she's excited to be with her favorite sister. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to send this to all the siblings so that they can be like, nice, that was rude.
Oh, good.
So welcome, Jourdan. Thank you for being with us today. Yes. Yeah. A lot of times when we start the podcast, I'll be like, this is how I know this person, or this is how I know this person. But because you're my sister, I feel like we have so many stories that we're just going to actually dig right into those.
Sounds good. Let's get it.
But, okay. So it's funny because I had written a script and Jourdan, I had let her kind of just read over a little bit of what we were going to talk about. And I had called her a crunchy mom. And she was like, what's a crunchy mom?
I thought it meant dirty. So I was like, I don't know if you're being mean or if you're making a joke.
You don't know if this is an insult?
Yes. I just had a moment. So
no, it's like you're crunchy. Like you're organic. You are working full time, right? And you also homeschool. And not a lot of parents are, I mean, more now than probably ever are doing that. But you're just living life a less traditional way than a lot of people did pre-COVID for sure, you know? And so I think it's like interesting to talk about, like, did you always want to homeschool? Why did you guys choose this path versus another path?
Yeah. So when I was actually in Florida, I went down there for ministry school. I homeschooled the kids while I was down there.
Yeah, that's right.
And I loved / hated it.
Right.
I had gotten curriculum. Someone else was like, this is the curriculum you should use. This is what we use here.
Yeah.
Which was really helpful that they were willing to like jump in really quickly and help. For us, that didn't really work. So it caused more stress.
Oh.
And then when we came back to Minnesota, they went back to school and I hated it.
Yeah.
With a burning passion.
Really? Okay.
And I had a really hard time. They had a really hard time. It put a lot of stress on everyone, and I hated seeing the kids like that.
Sure, yeah.
So when we actually moved, now almost 2 years ago, we had just decided, my husband and I sat down and talked, and I was like, this is where I'm at. You know, I'm tired of the kids feeling like, essentially like they're failures. I'm tired of them feeling like they're having this peer pressure. I'm tired of all these things. We need to change something now.
Yeah.
So we figured out how we could rearrange my schedule to work full time and come home and take care of the kids and homeschool.
Yeah.
And then we started doing it. We just kind of put it into action when, fly by the seat of your pants. And when it feels like you're falling, you just kind of deal with it and then figure something out.
Just lean forward. Like I did this on purpose.
Yes. There's no like put your, big toe in. It's either all or nothing. You know what I mean? And when it comes to my kids, it's very, there's no other way.
Sure.
I've already seen such growth, just something different that's changed. Being able to have those conversations when they're all of a sudden like having a moment and freaking out in the middle of school.
Yeah.
Being able to like, okay, we need to address what's going on.
Yeah.
And more looking inside, not just dealing with the outside crap.
Right. Yeah. 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 I homeschooled Carter and Gracie for a little while and I loved it too. I mean, it was hard. It's like so hard work. It's so hard. It's really hard work, I think. And then I tried to homeschool Grace again later. Cause and that didn't work. Like we just realized our personalities are so similar, I think, that it didn't work.
Yeah.
Probably.
It's definitely hard. And I'm thankful we're able to do it when they're, not super young, but still young.
Yeah.
I feel like we can correct some of the negative thoughts that start coming in. You know what I mean? At
Right,
this
yeah.
age, they're 11 and 13. So like
Yeah.
being able to be on guard on, okay, is this truth what you're hearing right now or what you're
Right.
feeling? You know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
being able to discuss it, I feel like has been super helpful.
Yeah. Well, and have you noticed a difference in their like mental health at all?
Oh
Or no?
yeah.
Or yeah.
I mean, before it was, I don't know, it was hard. You know, my older daughter is very like gentle and very emotional, and she was having a really hard time no matter where she was at.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
and I think being able to like look at what's going on and what she's hearing and what she's feeling and be able to address them more
Yeah.
have been very helpful. It's constantly a work in progress. I'm a work in
Yeah.
progress, and I'm,
We all are. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
double her age. Plus.
I'm double.
But I think it's good to be able to like have the time to be able to stop school. Like, okay, what's
Yeah.
going on?
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so good. So I had asked you previously. So you have tattoos everywhere. We don't have a video on you right now, but like you have tattoos everywhere. And last night we were talking, and you said your favorite tattoo is the couch
Yeah.
on your arm. And I was like, oh, funny. Like last night we literally just had this conversation. And then when I was asking you about your favorite quote, you said your favorite quote from Dad, which is
If anybody calls you, just because someone calls you a couch doesn't mean that's your couch.
yeah.
Doesn't matter what people say you are. That's not who you are. So after he said that, and I got that
Yeah.
tattooed on my arm,
Yeah.
he was like, I really wish I'd have used a different analogy.
Dad. Oh my gosh. Well, what's so funny is like, I mean, he, I don't know why he said bathtub to me, but like 10 years ago or like 12 years ago, and I was going through a super hard time. Just so many negative thoughts, so many intrusive thoughts about how bad I sucked. And he said that about a bathtub. And so like literally, so that's like become my thing. Like I say that to my kids. I like teach it in the program. Like
Yeah.
we talk about I am statements and identity and who we are and knowing in your guts who you are, so that when the world says otherwise, you can, stand your ground. But that's so funny.
Yeah.
I literally just found out that about you.
Yeah. I tell my kids that all
Yeah.
the time. You know, when I have patients who, when I get the opportunity and people ask me about that tattoo, I'm
Yeah.
able to freely share. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I feel
Yeah.
like it's a huge open door, because how many people do you see with a couch tattoo? No one.
No,
Ever.
you're actually the only person I've ever met. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a good open door.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
segue.
So talk more about that. Like, where were you at when Dad said that to you? Now I want a tattoo. I want to get one.
Get it, girl.
Of a tub.
So I had just left my ex-husband, and it was a really scary time in my life, a really, really hard time. And I was pregnant, like 7 months pregnant with my daughter. I had a 1-year-old, and he was saying all of these things, who I was a terrible mom, all these things about me. And I cried to my dad, and I'm like, Dad, this is what he's saying. I'm just trying to keep my kids safe. Like, I'm just trying
Right.
to keep them okay. And he said, if he calls you a couch, then make you a couch. I'm like, well, no, of course not.
Yeah.
And he's like, it doesn't matter what he says.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
who you want to be,
Right.
and then it was like a huge aha moment to me, where that's one of the main moments actually in my life where I was like, my identity doesn't have anything to do with your thoughts, because I actually
Right.
don't give a rip about them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But like
yeah.
realized I can choose. No,
Yeah.
my identity is in this,
Right.
that, or the other thing.
Right. No, I love that so much, and that is something like I think that a lot of us struggle with, is that
Mhm.
we, the question is always, who told you that? Like I don't know when or who taught me to ask that phrase. Someone somewhere along my lifetime though did. Is who said that to you? Who told you that?
Hmm.
And if it's not someone in like that immediate circle or people who are loving, caring, and whatever for you, it's like, well, then just discard that. That's
Yeah.
not who you are. And so that's the question. I think sometimes when I've had to slow down, it's like, am I this? And my negative thoughts are like, I'm worthless, or I'm lazy, or I'm not successful, or I'm these things.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but I'm not. But in the moment of believing the lie and being like, oh, but I'm not where this girl is or that person is, comparison, it just gets in there,
Yeah.
and so no, I love that. And I've said that to Gracie too. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like it's like such a small, huge, profound statement.
I think it is. My biggest thing was always, you're a bad mom.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, me too. Yes.
100%. Like, I understand in times of my life, even though I tried really hard, I'm sure I just sucked. But like, my whole identity was from a young age, I wanted to be a mom because I thought that would complete me.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then when my identity was wrapped around these little kids,
right.
So terrible.
Right.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
we
all
all
I
do
kept
that.
hearing is, you're a bad mom. And then it's like, well.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
The end.
That's the end. I know. Yeah.
Great.
My whole thing is, I know.
Yep.
Well, and I did the same thing too. And I think when I, and it's not, this has nothing to do with homeschool, but I do remember homeschooling, feeling like I'm trying my hardest. I'm doing my best. And similarly, my identity was wrapped up in being a mom and being a good mom, or what I thought was a perfect mom. And then you fail. And then I failed. And then it was like, I'm worthless. I suck so bad. It was like there was never a middle ground of like, you did great today. Like, high five, girl. It was always going to bed like, they hate me. I think I hate me. I didn't do half the things I needed to get done today.
I don't think that really changes. I think it's being aware of those, like being really aware of, okay, we tried our best today. We did all of these things. It's not just what we learned like on paper. It's what we learned that's going to be practical to outside. Like, no, you cannot throw a temper tantrum, stomp your foot and walk away. It's not appropriate for me to do that.
Yeah.
Let alone you. So like.
Had some bosses do that.
Yeah. I mean, learning to be better than me.
Right. Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, I still have those moments often, where I feel like, okay, this sucked. How can we do different tomorrow?
It's about growth. It's about becoming. It's not about arriving. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you. Like, you just graduated recently with your RN and then ASL certification, right? And now you're ICU neuro nurse. Tell me more about why you chose that and like what brought you into the medical field in that space.
Yeah. So I was in med-surg first. I graduated a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to spend time in med-surg because I feel like it's important to get those foundational concepts.
Right.
This is like a highly debated topic. I really don't give a rip. Okay. I think it's important for me, you know what I mean, to get those solid
you wanted
skills.
that. Yeah.
So I transferred to neuro ICU, I guess 4 or 5 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to, because number one, I mean, everyone hates neuro.
Really?
Yeah. It's like a thing. Everyone asks me, like, why did you do that? And I was like, why do you guys keep asking that? My thought was, I've actually had these nightmares for quite a few years. That's something that was going to happen to my husband. Yeah. And I wouldn't know what to do. Mm. And he had what's called myasthenia gravis.
Okay.
It's a whole thing, and he was at a point in his life where he couldn't even like lift his leg to get up on stairs at certain times.
Right.
He was on medications for it. He had a surgery for it, but I still had this reoccurring nightmare where he would have a crisis happen, and I wouldn't know what to do. Yeah. Well, I wanted to make sure that I would know how to handle the situation. Yeah. And the nightmares didn't stop after being in neuro, but now I feel, even just being there for a little while, you get to see a lot. Yeah. So I feel more confident in moving forward. I think it was just, I want to know. I love to learn. Yeah. As scary as it is, I actually like neuro patients. I worked with people with dementia for about 7 years and memory cares. And neuro patients are very much so like that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of them can be behavioral, not on purpose.
Well, of course,
just how they are. And there's like just a soft spot in my heart. Yeah. For people who get confused or people who are behavioral like that. Yeah. I'm not quite sure why.
Yeah, you just have it.
It's just one of those things.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. I feel like I'm the only one of us. I'm the only Rudd girl that's not in medicine. Well, I guess Raina's. Yeah.
Jada.
Well, never mind.
Half.
I do know my family. I just want everyone to know that I know who they are, and I do know sort of what they do. Sometimes it feels like that because everyone recently is now like Dad and you and Rihanna and Danielle. Like everybody's getting these or not. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, but so like I think what's really interesting and like even part of why I wanted to bring you on today, like the organization I represent is called She Overcomes, and when I think of someone who has overcome a lot in your life, I think of you, and I even said this to you last night. Like I feel like you're probably the boldest person that I know, and so when you were saying to me, "Oh, I don't feel bold, I don't feel courageous," I actually was like, "You don't?" I had no idea.
Oh my gosh.
And so I kind of want you just to share even about like some of your life story, some of the areas, and you just did this last night at our church. You got to share that, but like some of those areas that you have overcome, how has that shaped you as a person? And even if you don't feel bold or you don't feel courageous, what does like walking that out now today after having overcome a lot of these like hardships, like do you know what I mean? Do you want to share a little bit more about like your stories?
Yeah. So I struggled for addiction for about 13 years. When I was 26, it was half of my life.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, around 19, I just got married and was going to have my daughter. So at that point, I had found out I was pregnant. I got told shortly before that I couldn't have kids. So I was devastated, found out I was pregnant, had a miscarriage, and then found I was pregnant again and had Ava. And so I was like, the moment I found out I was pregnant with her, I stopped smoking, I stopped drinking, I stopped all of the things.
Right.
Because I was like, this is my identity.
Yeah.
This is the whole reason I was created, was for this little girl. Like, it's
right.
I made it. It's okay.
Right.
And then I had her, got pregnant with my second, and the story with my ex-husband, happened, and I left. And I was in college online, and I had these two little girls, and I was like, all right, we're good. It's going to be fine. I'm going to, like, own my own business. I'm going to, X, Y, and Z. And then within a month of having my second daughter, I had to have an emergency surgery.
Right.
I had a retained placenta. And from then on, I had 15 surgeries in 3 years.
Right.
I had both kidneys who had shut down. I had nutcracker syndrome. I had nephrostomy tubes on my back trying to drain urine. I had lots of trauma, and they ended up removing my kidney at Mayo, and they had a massive internal bleed, so they were like, she's not going to make it.
Right. Yeah.
I made it.
Here you are.
Here I am. But after that, I couldn't get off the medications because they had me on like 20 different medications. I was on all of these narcotics, all of these benzos, all of these things. And at that point, I was so broken and so hurt.
Yeah.
And because a lot of trauma had happened in there with different abuses and different things. And I remember sitting down with Dad when I was 26, and I was like, Dad, how do I stop hitting bottom? I can't keep doing this. I'm scared I'm going to die.
Right.
And he just flat out told me, just stop digging. And I was like,
you guys, our dad is a poet.
He is. But
a scholar.
It was like an aha moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can just stop doing this.
Right.
Obviously, that's a very, controversial thought. Whatever. I remember literally shortly after that, sitting outside of my apartment in a not great neighborhood, not making good choices.
Sure.
And watching a pastor. My mom was like, you have to watch this guy. I'm like, I literally can't stand this. I hate everything. I was very hateful of God. I was like, I hate you. You know what I mean? I had this hate because I had got told such negative things about him. And this crazy drug addict got radically saved and was sharing the gospel. And I remember saying out loud, if you can do it with him, why not me?
Right. Yeah.
And then I overdosed.
Yeah.
Lost a full week
of
life. I have no recollection of it.
Yeah.
And that's actually what got me sober.
Right.
Because I was like, okay, this is really, really not okay. A couple things woke me up there. And that pastor actually ended up going to the cities, and we went down there, and I got set free. And that was a lot of things changed after that.
Yeah.
So how did that advance? I ended up going to Florida, which was terrifying. Packed up my kids, went 1,800 miles away with no plans to nowhere to live, no plans. I was really like, okay, Lord, if this is your will, like you need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like this is your train. I'm just here for the ride.
Yeah.
So lots of stuff with that. Ended up coming back and went to school because I'm like, I love taking care of people.
Right.
I got to take care of Grandpa right when I had gotten sober. I'd gotten my
Mhm.
CNA and took care of him at the end of life, and he had memory
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the love of taking care of people really
Yeah.
set in.
Yeah. So, like, talk, you know, now I have like an unfair advantage because I know you so well, but like, I think about really like the mission around the stuff that I've been doing has been helping women see themselves as confident,
Mhm.
as courageous, as able to take risks, because there's a whole bunch of statistics around this and around whether women are more risk averse than men, or there's statistics around like confidence and the confidence gap and all of this stuff. But I, what I've noticed for me, what I've noticed as I like interview women and talk to them is they're all very BA. Like they're all well educated, smart people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, and they're the ones that are like, but I want more. I want more. And but for some reason on paper and on statistics, it says women are less bold. And I'm like, I don't think so. I want to learn what's happening here. I think there's
Mhm.
actually a disconnect. It seems almost like it's like a silent confidence or a silent, I can do this. Like I can overcome, in your case. And for those of you who know Jourdan or don't know Jourdan, I mean, I remember that time and you were like 100 pounds.
Yeah.
You were
I'm
like
5'9".
yeah,
So
she's 5'9", 100 pounds, and she was walking with a cane. I mean, she was just a shell.
yeah.
And to remember that addicted Jourdan
Mhm.
versus, and you've been to many treatment centers, you know, all through
Yep.
high school, right? I mean,
Yep.
kind of up and down all through high school and then later on in your 20s. To come out of that, obviously, you said you had a spiritual experience, but like, you don't see those experiences as courageous?
So it's interesting you say that about educated women. I was in special education when I was in school. So
Yeah.
for a very, very long time, was like, I am not smart. I cannot learn. I cannot
Really?
do these things because
Huh.
I couldn't. I had such issues paying attention in school. I had all of
Yeah.
these,
Yeah.
all of these things. So I truly did not think I was smart. So that's where I really struggled. And when I was like, well, dumb or not, I want to get what I want out of this life.
Yes. I may be dumb, but I am going to live this to the
Yes.
fullest. It's actually funny because it's relatable. It's like, yeah, same.
I feel like I hit a moment where I was like, I actually don't care what any of you think about
Right.
me, about my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
I'm trying my hardest to
Mhm.
become who I want to be.
Right.
Like, if you stand in my way, then not to be crude, but like, you're dead to me, because I'm desperately trying
Yeah.
to make a better life for me and for my kids.
And for your kids. Right.
That was such the deciding factor. So boldness, honestly, I truly just think it was stubbornness.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
Because, even when I was using, I was going to go all out.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, me too.
It didn't
Yeah.
matter if it was drinking or drugs or whatever, X, Y, and Z. I was
Right.
going to do it with all of my heart.
Mhm.
And when I got sober and found Jesus, then I was like, I'm not gonna go in halfway. It's either
Right.
all or nothing.
Yeah, you're in. Yeah.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
I'm in it, I'm 100% in it.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess that's what I thought of is just, it's not boldness. It's just being stubborn. It reminds me of Grandpa Rudd all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You are a lot like Grandpa Red.
Gabe told me that yesterday. He's like, you have so many qualities. And I'm like, I think you do, sir.
Thank
Anyway.
you, question
Yeah.
mark?
Yep.
Well, and there's I can't remember who said it, but there's a lot of like research around it. Like when you invest in a woman, or when women invest in themselves, you're not just impacting that woman's life. You're actually impacting a generation.
Oh, 100%.
Because women statistically and more often than not are the ones passing down. They're the ones traditionally, this isn't all women. This isn't an all statement, but majority and traditionally women are the ones teaching the children. They're the ones educating the kids. And if you educate a woman, if you give her the tools that she needs, you're not just doing it for her, you're doing it for her children.
Mhm.
And that's how you multiply. And that's how you multiply impact when you invest in a community. That's how you multiply generational, when someone in a family overcomes generational poverty,
Mm-hmm.
like it's going to shift the generations when you're working specifically with women. And so like you have that story,
Yeah.
because now you're educating, now you're teaching your daughters about self-restraint, about managing their emotions, about the things that maybe is it fair to say that you maybe didn't know how to do that? And so that was why sometimes drugs or alcohol were like, well, at least this doesn't make me hurt.
Absolutely.
Right? That's why a lot of people get addicted
Yeah.
is I don't want to feel pain.
Yep.
I am in pain and I don't want to feel pain, whether it's pharmaceuticals or alcohol or whatever, and so, but when you are now sober and now you can have a conversation with your daughter, like, you're mad, right? That's okay. We're going to talk about it. And
Yep.
now we're going to learn about self-regulation.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
remind them often,
Yeah.
like, just because I'm telling you this does not mean that I have it figured out. I am
No.
also learning.
Right.
I remind them all the time. Once you stop learning, then you're dead.
Then you're done. Yeah.
That's the end of the story.
right.
You forever will be a learner.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's super important. But also telling them when I have mini meltdowns, like,
Yeah.
I'm still learning.
Right.
I'm teaching you stuff that I'm learning now at 30 something.
Right. What's funny is I was traveling to Grand Forks to teach, and some of the Becoming Bold content, and Grace was with me. And so I allowed her to come with me, and I'm like, you can be my auditor. I want you to listen to how I'm presenting, and I'd like you to give me kind and constructive feedback because I'm learning what to do. Like, this is new for me. And it's not, but it is, and so I'm kind of nervous and still like awkward and nerdy and make bad jokes.
Yeah.
So she was like, so we're just to your point. So we're driving back and she's driving, which is hard for me. So she's giving me my gentle, constructive feedback on, you talk too much about this, you talk too much about that. And I was like, thank you. I actually asked for that. But I'm still learning, and it's patience, and here's why I did this. So it was just like a teachable moment for me as I'm like teaching. And so then she's driving, and she's like, every time she passes a car, she sorry if you guys have been driving on I-29 next to me and Grace, because she as she passes cars, she leans in to them. And I'm like, you got to lean out. I'm going to have a panic attack here. And she's like, I know, I'm just learning. And I'm like, just like me. And it was such a funny experience. And I'm like, baby, that's exactly it. I'm learning some new skills here. I'm learning what is working and what isn't working. And you're in the car and you're learning, and neither one of us are in trouble. And I think we have to give ourselves the grace to be like, you're right. I'm learning.
Yeah.
And not be so critical and not be so whatever with ourselves. Because one time she was driving, sorry, I could talk forever about this, but one time she was driving and she's like, oh, I like suck at everything. I'm bad at everything. And I was like, where did that thought come from?
Yeah.
You just didn't stop she did stop, for the record, but not in the right location. But how many of us have those thoughts? I don't know what I'm doing. I suck. I'll never get this, And I think that's really the disservice, is when we keep that in and no one ever knows. And then that just becomes the tape that we play over and over again,
I think it's hard also when you have grace for other people and not with family or yourself.
Yeah.
I've noticed that in my life where some people will annoy the crap out of me. And I'm like, it's fine. I don't have to go home to them. And then something my child will do, and I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had to, this recently has happened where I'm like, well, you need to take a real big pause here. Because if I'm giving grace to someone I don't even like, why am I not giving grace to someone who I love dearly with all of my heart? You know?
Yeah.
Like, I always pray, I'm like, Lord, you need to convict me. Like,
Sure.
I know it's going to be painful. Let's get it. Let's fix this thing that I'm doing incorrectly so I can do it right.
Oh, yeah. So, as a nurse too, so there's like the family dynamic. Now, as a nurse, you're working with a lot of personalities in kind of high stakes situations.
Yeah.
And I feel like our reactions to people become more, what would you say? Pronounced?
Sharp.
I'm like super nice. I'm like, it's more pronounced. And it's like, no, they're yelling.
Yeah. I
Like,
feel
how do you manage that in a work environment now surrounded by a lot of very intelligent people working on pretty serious things?
Yeah. I honestly still have many moments where I feel really, really stupid. And I just pray. I'm not kidding you. I never truly understood the scripture, pray without ceasing until this job. And I'm continuously like, Lord, I need your wisdom.
Yeah.
Like, I need you to help me. Tell me, you know what I mean? Exactly what to do. What am I missing? Always on guard.
Yeah.
And thankfully, we have some really amazing nurses who are so willing to come beside you and like who are vets and who are like, this is why we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I have met very few who I butt heads with, but boy, when we butt heads, we butt heads. So then in those moments, I'm real careful.
Yeah.
Like, Lord, protect my mouth. Like, convict me, make sure that I'm on guard.
Yeah.
Because that can come in, an offense can happen, and then guess what? It's someone else who's going to deal with the consequences of me being a little bee.
Right.
So,
You're right.
truthfully, though, that's what it is.
Yes.
If I need to excuse myself from a situation, it's not my direct patient, then I do it.
Yeah.
If it's my direct patient, usually, that hasn't happened. I usually have people who are so wonderful, calm, and are willing to help. I guess it's honestly, truthfully, just a lot of prayer. We have a lot of amazing providers who are also like super great at educating.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And they're so good with, okay, this is why we're doing this. You know what I mean? Even in those
That's
moments,
helpful.
I don't ask, hey, why? Because in that moment, it's just keeping this person alive.
Right.
But afterwards, you're like, this is why we did this.
Yeah.
So I feel really blessed, also really scared all of the time.
That's awesome. I'm convinced that that's actually what courage feels like. Like, I think that's actually what it is like, I feel that all the time right now. I saw my therapist today and I was like, I have this in the air and this in the air and this in the air and this in the air. And they're all suspended and I'm just staring at them.
Yeah.
I'm like, she's like, how do you feel that in your body? And I'm like, I'm not into my body. I don't know.
100%. And it's so funny that when all of a sudden I got asked to share my testimony at church and I get asked with you, all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, it's been going pretty fine. And then all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. And I'm like, this has been the worst couple of days I've had in a hot minute.
Yeah. Isn't
you know
that
what I mean?
funny? Yeah.
So like being, again, I feel like always like my song of this season is like being on guard.
Yeah.
Like guard your heart, guard your mind,
Yeah.
because there's so many thoughts that are coming in like, I'm going to punch this person. To be totally honest, man, I want to sock them.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a nice feeling. How do I manage this?
I am not currently a nice person.
No.
I need to overcome that.
And that's this comes into play wonderfully. I have a water bottle that I keep all the time. And it says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger.
Yeah.
James 1:19.
Yeah.
Like, watch my mouth.
Yeah.
Because I have I'm getting so much better, but I had such a sharp tongue.
Yeah, me too.
So that's where I feel like it's been.
Oh, that's awesome. So what are 3 of your biggest mistakes or failures?
Where's that question?
Oh, number 6, guys.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Didn't even see that one.
Yeah. And what did you learn from them? And you can just give me 1 or 2, but like I actually love sharing those experiences because like we can look shiny on a Facebook page. We can look shiny and be like, oh, I made it. I've arrived. But it's like, I feel like the lessons that I've learned have never come from successes. They've never come from like, oh my gosh, I'm so awesome. Yeah. They've always come from, oh, I did this wrong. And then this is what I learned. I'm not going to do that again. Or I got this half right. I wish I would have done X, Y, or Z. Yeah. So I can think of one big one. You don't have to think
of 3. There's one big one that I'm thinking of.
Okay.
When I was in Florida, there was a time when all of a sudden everything came to a halt.
Yeah.
Where nothing was working out. And I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm tapped out. I couldn't figure out a way out. There was one, but I was like, this doesn't make sense. This is terrible. This is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Now, the more I think of it, that was probably the right choice. But I was like, no, I'm done. I'm going to go home.
Yeah.
For me, I think that was one of my biggest mistakes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I do.
And just I can't remember if you shared, but like it was right after you sobered up. You felt God leading you to go to the ministry school, right?
Yes.
And so that's what I just want to clarify. So you were going to a ministry school You went down to Florida, picked
Yep.
everything up, homeschooled your kids. And so that when you say Florida, I just want to clarify
Yeah.
so people know, like, you weren't going on a vacation.
But it was like there was lots
Yeah.
of confirmation along the way.
Yeah.
Lots
Yeah.
of things where I was like, Lord, if you do this,
Yeah.
like that means I'm for sure supposed to stay. And then that 100% happened. So I feel like there was a number of them.
Yeah.
And at the end, I was like, this is my option to stay, but I have the option to leave. The option to stay seems really, really, really hard. And I was so tapped out. I was
you're
like,
just tired.
I have been looking for jobs
Yeah.
nonstop. I'm not
I
a
remember
lazy
that.
person. I'm
No, you're
doing
not at
all that
all.
I can.
Yeah.
So I left, you know,
Yeah.
and I feel like, you know, I had a really hard time with that actually for quite some
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And talking to my sister-in-law about it a little bit during Christmas, and she's
Yeah.
just such a blessing.
I love her.
But knowing that even in our mistakes,
Right. Yeah.
once we get back on track, God still blesses.
Totally. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
feel like that was really hard for me because I feel like I missed what I was supposed to be at.
Yeah.
And now I'm
Yeah.
like, Lord, I'm in this. I'm really
Right.
sorry. Can you please readjust this? You know,
Yeah.
and still walking in His favor. But that's I think, probably my biggest regret.
So what did you learn? Like, what's the
learned-
lesson in that?
Is that even when you make a mistake and don't take that right path,
Sure.
He will still bless you if you're back in obedience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm still like, okay, I'm in my word.
Yeah.
I'm making sure that I'm being cautious on what I'm doing, on my actions, and the things that I'm seeing. You know, He'll still bless you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't the original.
It wasn't the
blessing.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that's
Oh,
a hard
yeah.
thing to swallow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. When you miss it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, and you miss it sometimes.
I know. I know. I've missed a lot.
but God,
But, yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but
Right. Yeah. I think I think that is really good. And we were talking about that too. Like I feel like everyone can look back and see times where they've missed it or they've missed, like, I should have done this, but I didn't. I went left and not right, you know? And I think for me, that probably has been a lot of, like, even with what I'm doing now is I have missed things because I've been so afraid. I've missed things because I've been afraid of being provided for, or I've missed things because I've been afraid. Probably one of my bigger fears, which is so embarrassing, is like, just what will people think? What will I look stupid? Or, you know what I mean? It's like stupid stuff. And I know that I'm not a bathtub.
yeah,
You know, but like it's interesting when we say no to an opportunity out of fear. And I think those fears are what, when we can dig down and find what that root was, we learn the deeper we learn the deeper lesson, you know?
and I think in that situation,
Yeah.
you know, being so headstrong, so many people were like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. And I'm like, well, the more you push me, the more I want to do
now
it.
I want to. Yeah, right.
Now I'm
yeah.
100%, and now I'm there, and I leave a month later.
Right. Yeah.
And then I finally got down there,
Yeah.
and everyone finally was like, yeah, this makes sense. You're here. It's
yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm actually so tired,
yeah.
you know, and
yeah.
I feel like I've been fighting, and I didn't, you know, I feel like there's a lot of scriptures now that's like, okay, my yoke is easy, my burden is light.
Sure.
And at
Yeah,
that
yeah.
time, I
Yeah,
was
you
trying
could
to
have felt
like,
that, yeah.
you know, go hard the way I know how.
Yep. Yeah.
And not resting in His truth.
Right.
You know, yes, that road was going to be really hard.
Right. Yeah.
And I think
yeah.
I was like, there has to be an easier way.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
and it's
Made
I
that
know.
choice, and now
And here you are, but there, you know, and so Jourdan Fischer today is a ICU neuro nurse. Soon, Jourdan Fischer will probably be your pastor.
and see that's
I mean,
that's
you
the
know,
thing is
like-
I always wanted was
Yeah.
to be able to
Yeah.
share. You know, I
Yeah, yeah.
always wanted to share
Yeah.
identity, which
Right.
is so funny that
Yeah.
you're doing what you're doing because my whole life is even
Yeah.
with my patients.
Yeah.
Any opportunity I get,
Yeah.
I remind them like, hey, just so you know, you are loved.
Your love. Well, and that I think is so, like, I do think that's part of the redemption of your life too, is that, like, you are in a position, you're working in a field where healing, you know, you have been healed a lot. And sometimes your healing has been, I think, supernatural. And sometimes your
Mhm.
healing has been because you've had an amazing doctor and,
Yep.
and wonderful nurses surrounding you. I mean, you've had it all. And so it's like, I just think of it as like, well, your story's not done yet. It's not
Yeah.
done. You know, the story arc, you are the hero of the journey, of your journey. You know what I mean? Like, in a sense, But you know what I mean? Like you're like main. What did they say? Like I'm in my main character era. I think that's what the kids are saying these days.
I've never heard that.
Okay, never mind.
okay.
Anyway, sorry.
No,
But
no, not a big deal.
but it's just part of the journey.
Yeah.
It's just part of the journey. That's what makes a good story and a good book and a good life is taking the hits when we take them, learning, and then doing our best to turn quick and make a pivot
Yeah.
when we have to.
And not make the same mistake. You know, what I was going to say
Right,
actually
yeah.
before was, the biggest thing is the keep going. You know, it talks, 23rd Psalm,
Yeah.
yea, though I walk. At
Right.
times I literally, that scripture always comes to my head is I'm
Yeah.
just crawling, but I'm going forward. You know what I mean? I am not stagnant. I am not staying. This sucks. And I'm like army
Yeah.
crawling at times, but
Yeah.
I'm still going forward. That's,
Right.
that's always like it's inscripted on my heart.
I think that, yeah. And, Dad, so when I was 18, I don't know if you remember this, but I was in art. I love art. I love to paint. Anyway, so I was so sad. It was right after our great grandpa died, and our family was really, really just going through a ton of trauma and a lot of hard stuff. And I painted this painting in my depression, and I won like an award for it. And so I was proud of that. But
Mhm.
it just had a spirit of despair on it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like where you see certain art and you're like, oh,
That's so
like you
sad.
can it's so sad.
Yeah.
And I just didn't in that space. I was young, but I also just had no hope at that
Mhm.
time. And Dad was like, so I brought it home and I won an award. It was a good
Yeah.
painting, but it was really dark. I hung it up for my senior whatever party or
Yeah.
senior grad party. And Dad looked at it and he stood in the hallway and he goes, what did you name this? And I told him the name and he goes, I think you should name it As I Walk Through the Valley of the Shadow of Death. I sat down and took a break. And I was like, Dad.
Oh, but how true
How
is
tr-
it?
and how-
It's so
yeah.
easy to sit down and be like,
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, deal with it, girlfriend. Get
Done.
up.
Get back up. Yes. And
Yeah.
that's it. It's we fail, we fall, and we get back
Yeah.
up.
And it's not bad to like have
Yeah.
a moment of being like, I need to take a breath and recoup.
Yeah.
But a moment, bro. Don't
Right.
stay there.
Yeah. Don't set up camp.
Don't set up camp. Don't build a house. That's the valley, man. It's so much better on the other side. And at this point in life, I'm like, moments where I'm like, okay,
Right.
girl, get it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay. Pep talking myself, and there's like in the mirror.
Yeah.
I think the other big thing, when we've talked so much about identity, is I had such a distorted view of my identity.
Yeah.
If I could tell my younger self,
Yeah, that's actually where I was going to land the plane. So yeah,
look at
tell
that.
us. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, if you were going to tell your younger self one thing, what would you say to her?
Your identity is not in what everyone else says. Look at the scriptures. What does he say about me?
Yeah.
There's hundreds of scriptures where he is telling me, I was created for such time as this.
Yeah,
Before he knew me before I was created in my mother's womb. He knew all of these things about me. He loves
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I think genuinely knowing my identity and how special I actually am would have changed my whole trajectory of life.
Yeah.
I came from such, God doesn't love you. God hates you.
Right.
Nobody
yeah.
likes you.
Yeah, that's how
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had jet black hair, 14 face piercings, and trip pants. I wasn't super cool.
Super cool.
But and I was so lost and so broken. Like
yeah.
that's not truth. That's what
Right.
I've told myself.
Yeah.
That's not truth. Like you need to be careful. Guard your heart. Guard your mind. Guard what you're
Mhm.
hearing.
Right.
Yeah. That's the one thing I would tell myself.
Wow. Oh, I love that so much. That's really good.
I would tough love it.
I would
Man.
tough love it. I would punch myself in the face and say,
Get it
back up."
together.
Right.
Get it together, man.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. All right. Well, I think we are going to wrap with that. Thank you so much for coming in today. This was so good. I kind of feel like I just want to keep going, but we'll put some show notes in there. But one thing I do want to say, and maybe actually here's where we'll stop is if someone is listening, if a woman or a man or whomever is listening and they're like, man, I'm stuck in my addiction, or I'm stuck feeling all of that self-hatred that you just talked about, that you felt what call to action, what would you say, what's the call to action for someone who's like, I'm actually in a rut and I need some help right now?
Yeah. I would say open your Bible to the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Yeah.
You need to start looking and seeing what Jesus did to those who were broken,
Yeah.
those who were lost. Look at all of the people who he stopped, like the woman of the issue of the blood. He stopped everything to go and talk to her because she was special.
Right.
Go and search. Don't listen to what other people say. Go and search and see what he says about you. That's 100% the only thing that I would say ever changed my thoughts on anything.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, that's really powerful. That's great.
Get it?
All right. You heard it from Reverend Jourdan Fischer. But actually.
Real talk.
Real talk. Oh, my gosh. Thank you so much for coming in today, Jourdan. And all right, Overcomer. If you liked this podcast, please rate it and share it with a friend. Share it with someone who needs to be encouraged today. We want to see all women walk in their identity, their authority, and power as bold leaders in each sphere of influence they belong to. Remember, you are stronger than you think you are.